Hello, internet friends, and welcome to... My intro is a little bit too loud. Episode number 206 of Final Boss TV. My name's Adam K.A.K. Bay. We'll be your host on this adventure through the Fury Warrior Bants. A sprinkling of arms in there, just a little bit, just a little bit. We haven't really talked about any of the warrior stuff yet outside of protection, and we didn't talk about the DPS stuff back then. So we'll get into all that today, of course. And just to put this in the start of the main show, got a little bit of a break coming up soon. I've got the huge PC build, I've got the studio move, I've got all this stuff happening. So there's no show next week, but the Sunday after next will be the year-end special. Trying to set that up for you, of course. More information on Twitter when I get that all sorted. But the show wouldn't be here, of course, without these nerds and ladies that are supporting the show, the stream, and everything in between. Happy holidays, everyone that is supporting the show directly over on my Patreon page, getting those BTS podcasts. We're up to 70 plus now. So if you want just more of these nerds talking about World of Warcraft and things, you can take a trip back in time and listen to them if you'd like. There are many of them, along with all the BTS show notes. If you want to check out how the show is put together, then you can go check that out. Links are down below, of course, here on Twitch or on YouTube. Down below in the description. It keeps going and going and going and going and going. There's the wallpapers. I'm going to click again. Oh, it's going to take me to the actual page. No, it's just too much. Everything is, of course, tagged. I actually was sorting through and trying to clean up all the tags of the day on my Patreon, because there is a great deal. Additionally, of course, big shout out to my partners in all of this and the sponsors for the show, Corsair and Elgato. The holidays are upon us, as I already have said. Of course, as you don't know, some of them on this show has had their Christmas lights up since before Thanksgiving, but that's, neither here nor there. But if you're looking at any bits and bobs and pieces and parts for your upcoming builds, I know I am. I have a ton of stuff. I'll be live streaming the huge Corsair Elgato MSI build from scratch coming up this week, later this week. So if you want to tune in and watch that, then I will be doing the whole shebang and going through all the stuff that I have put together, all the little different pieces and parts, and making sure it all works and setting it all up. You can be along for that journey. But links are down below if you want to help support what I do here and get something for yourselves or those last-minute gifts. 10% off and free standard shipping. But there may be even better deals right now. But again, if you go through the links right here on Final Boss TV, then you help what I do. That's how these things work. It's not your first time on the internet. Come on. You know how this thing works if you would choose to do so. But today's show is Fury Warrior. And I was told he was supposed to start singing when I introduced him. Corejo, welcome back to the show, sir. Hello.
I'm not gonna sing.
Damn it!
One thing I want to add about the Christmas lights. I'm Canadian, so we had Thanksgiving in October. So I don't. Before Thanksgiving, it's after Thanksgiving, the real Thanksgiving.
Oh, okay. That's fair. It's also like one string. Is there more that we can't see?
There's more, yeah. I have my window blinds closed because the sun shines directly into the camera and everything, so it's not a good idea. No, the rest of my house is decorated too, so. Okay, that's fair. But you had to make sure you let that in. But well, it's been a while since we talked. Legion, we last sat here, so a little bit's changed. A little bit has changed. A little bit.
You still look. A chat saying you're 6. How old are you?
I am 21, but yeah, I still do look like I'm 12. That's just, I'm forever cursed with that. I'm okay with that.
Forever? That's not a bad curse to have, I don't think.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Joining you today, co-guesting, of course, Chat, you'll be on the show a little bit, but Vil, welcome to the show as well. Hello, sir.
Yeah, thanks for welcoming me. I'm not gonna sing or do anything special, but...
No? Dang. You're just here to make sure that Corey doesn't say anything wrong. Is that right? You're what's it called? A parse porter or parse lord? What's...
That's what my guild likes to call me, yeah.
Ah, well, do you do the damages? Is that...
I try to, if it doesn't wipe us.
Oh. Well, I mean, yeah, dead DPS is no DPS, right? So, and your parse doesn't matter if you don't kill the boss forehead. Is that correct?
True.
Okay. Well, we have a whole lot to get through. And I want to go right back, since Vil, you're new to this. And not everyone might know who the heck you are on the World Wide Web. But if you want to, what do you dabble in when it comes to World of Warcraft? How long have you been part of said dabbling? Just intro yourself, sir. This is you.
Well, I've been raiding in Vision on Thrall for around 2 years now. I mainly play DPS, usually Warrior, but I've played some other things for progression. I try to stick to melee, though, generally.
How long have you been doing the deeps then, overall? Not just Warrior, but in general?
I'd say about 3 years.
Oh.
Since HFC.
Oh my gosh. That's even like, what do you call that? Because the derogatory term back in the day was wrath baby. That's just like straight up, it's a warlord's baby.
Warlords is when I really started playing, but I started in Gata. I was really bad then, like elemental shaman putting on agility gear and stuff.
Well, that sounds pretty standard. And Court, you've been here before, but just in case we need a refresher. Who the heck are you? What do you dabble in? How long have you been part of said dabbling?
All right, so last time I was on the show, I was more of a help desk kind of person. I would help most people with theory crafting and stuff, but now I do a fair share of the theory crafting, mostly for Arms Warrior. I write my own guides on YouTube as well. Check that out if you want. But yeah, that's what I do. Some of the theory crafting mostly for Arms. Dabble a little bit Fury, but not too much. I really started doing this back in Legion, about after Emerald Nightmares, when I started really picking up and doing more of my fair share.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. I helped do some of the EPL for the last tier for Arms, and yeah, that's really it. So,
okay. So what the heck are you doing on the Fury Warrior show?
you gotta have a second warrior on here. I still play Fury. I still make guides. Still do a bit of theory crafting, but deep down in my heart, Arms is the true spec. If you think Fury is the true spec, you're just protection's okay.
Well,
but Arms is like the true chat spec. Real people know.
Do you miss Gladiator?
From time to time, it was really fun. The high EPM was really, really fun, but then again, it's just kind of hard to like exist in the game. That, especially back then, it was really hard to like make it like good, but not too good.
Yeah, that was a weird failed experiment. Did you ever dabble in Glad Warrior, Phil?
I played it a little bit in HFC when I messed around my Warrior, but I didn't play when it was like really good and high.
Yuck. Corey, you had something you wanted to add to the Gladiator discussion?
No. I mean, I played it for quite a while, actually. I think when I first started Warlords, I played until like mid-high mall, and then when Blackrock came out finally, I was in my first actual raiding guild. I did Heroic and then eventually Mythic. I would play mostly Fury, but then back then Warlords Warrior wasn't very well designed at all. DPS Warrior was actually just in shambles, in my opinion. It was not very
unfortunate. Yeah. But then so resources wise then, Corejo, as you said, you're part of helping that get worked out. Now,
yeah.
Different classes and specs have sort of different hierarchies here. And shout out to Archie. I don't know if he's still hanging out in chat though, but Archie he's not alone in this. He's not like the Azerotharian of the warrior community, is he? He doesn't do all this by himself, right? You want to who else gets some credit for putting all this information together?
Well, back in Legion, after Warrior had to take a break from the game, it was mostly just Archie by himself for quite most of it. But in BFA, there are a lot of people who have helped out and are actually absolutely grateful for helping us. You know, you got Delenios, you got Max Sarahline, and Vil and myself. We all help Archie from here time to time, especially the night before when we're testing essences to make sure which one's the right one the night before the patch. That's usually when most of it actually goes down at 2 a.m.
Oh,
yeah, I mean,
crunch time.
You don't want to do it during the PTR cycle, especially when things are changing so drastically from time to time, especially big things like essences, like the corruption. You test it 1 week, and then all of a sudden on the next Tuesday, it's completely different, right?
Right.
Do it the night before crunch for one night, and then you're done.
There's a lot of stuff on there, of course, looking at the Wowhead guide that Archie has put together. A couple of things on here that'll definitely be updated with 8.3, as many things are going to be changing soon. But if you are looking through stuff, need a refresher, of course, that's your first stop. I would definitely suggest going there. But who, Vil, do you get in part of any of this now, being part of the Skyhold community? Do you get to guinea pig things? Before we started the show, you were talking about some weird mastery build. Do you help at all? What's up?
Yeah, there's some new mastery build you can play for arms. People have been messing around with in dungeons, just like for sustained AoE. But I usually don't help with like very specific math. I'm more just like testing stuff in practice, like trinkets on fights and
Yeah,
like what would be better on like certain fight timers. But in terms of math, it's really just Delenios, Max, Archie, and Corey usually.
Okay. All right. I like to make sure there's more shout outs that go out there because everyone always goes, why is it this person on the show or why is this person on the show? Some of it's kind of trolly and memey, but other times it's because they were approached and they just said they don't want to sit down and talk for 2 hours about this. They like to do their own thing, be part of that community in their own way, but they don't want to sit down and just talk about it. They don't have that in them, which is fine. So the first things first that I want to bring up, we haven't talked about this in a while, and this was sort of part of what I was going to name the episode, so I'm not actually sure if it's going to still stay the actual episode's name when it gets titled and put up on YouTube. But I know there's a couple of classes and specs out there in BFA that had a very sticky situation with the GCD changes, and things have been lifted a little bit since the start of the expansion, but Vil, since you're more fresh into going right into Legion and then going right into BFA, do you have any impact, or do you want to talk about, does the GCD really, do you still notice it at all? Because you've got charge, the 0.5 second GCD, casting recklessness has the regular 1.5 second GCD reduced by haste. But then they made it last longer. And Rallying Cry, your utility has got 1.5 seconds. Arm Sweeping Strikes, 1.5. And then again, still charge for them. But do you even, is this that sticky still? Do you still notice it? Is it just...
Right now, on charge, you basically don't notice it at all. Rec is, it's alright. It's, I would be more of a fan if they just took off the GCD. Rally is definitely the biggest offender though.
Yeah.
And I mean, in farm, you'll have people, like myself included, sometimes who only hit rally during Bladestorm when it's the only button you can. Especially when it's called for in advance, it's it can be kind of annoying. But
yeah,
when they removed charge off the GCD, it was a lot better. Like on Fetid, when you need to charge back after his knockback, it was kind of awkward to just sit there and wait for his knockback, and you couldn't hit buttons, or else you couldn't charge back.
Right.
I remember doing that fight and after 8.1, and then remembering I can do that was the biggest amount of dopamine I ever had in BFA. I can charge off GCD. Absolutely mind-blowing. It felt amazing when I could actually not just sit there for a second and a half, just literally just not.
Yeah, I don't really notice it too much. I play a lot of like all 3 specs of Shaman and then Havoc and Vengeance, so I don't really notice it all that much. I know the Frost DK show we had recently, it was definitely a talking point we had for them for a little bit about their cooldown stacking madness, because you have to sort of like hit this, then that, then this, then you can go. That's mostly the fact that they still have 2 desynced cooldowns. But it didn't look that bad when I was looking through for Warrior. I know that Sweeping Strikes, I think for arms, is like a prep time. You're like, I hit this, then I gotta wait, and then I can go. Which that's the
yeah.
whole...
I mean, it doesn't feel that bad for arms
Okay.
too. Arms 2 main cooldowns are already a GCD already because they do damage. But even then, arms has empty globals no matter what you do. So the sweeping strikes and rally doesn't feel that bad, but you mostly feel in sweeping strikes because like you hit it like, oh my god, and I'm sitting here for 1.5 seconds. Can it cost a smash? Can execute? Can't do anything. Even it doesn't feel that bad. And on Fury again, it doesn't feel that bad either, since you have a lot of haste. GC is not long,
right?
And Warrior cooldowns are fairly long as well. So again, you don't really feel the change that much.
Okay.
Still rather annoying though.
Yeah, That's what I mean. Chat was echoing that rally was probably the biggest one that came up. It's even funny that Vale mentions that as arms, you only hit it when you're blade storming. That's
Yeah, hitting like rally during recklessness, it feels so bad because the entire GC just gone.
yeah. I don't know if they're gonna change anything about that. I mean, we'll get into more of what we hope that the great unpruninator Brian Halinka will do. But then last little bit, talking about the GCD, of course. Vil, are you playing any classic warrior? Where everything is on the GCD?
I tried when it came out, but classic was just not my style. It was just too slow for me. Maybe it's because I started WoW kind of late, like Kata-ish.
Yeah.
But it was just too slow for me and kind of boring.
Corey, are you playing any classic?
I did play quite a bit of it on release, and I hit 59.5 and I quit because
what the heck? You're so close.
Yeah, right. But the thing is, I didn't really feel compelled to raid or anything because the fights are so easy. The content is just not for me. But
Sure.
It was fun just to relive my very young 7-year-old life playing for. I just picked it up recently again, just doing Arctic Valley. And that's kind of fun just to keep spamming and get decent gear. But I probably won't raid or PvP much because it's not very interesting. PvP is way more interesting in Classic than the raid content, which is
Sure.
it's just the dullest stuff ever, right? You kill bosses in 30 seconds, it's no challenge. People are killing Ragnaros and greens and not even level 60, right? So
Yep. Yeah, I wonder, because I was part of the casting in Method's Race to World First for Classic, and it was interesting to see how, I mean, it's 15 years plus later, right? And everything's been figured out and sorted and done, and even some friends of mine that are still definitely playing, the initial push was like the big part of how you got anywhere in Classic. It's like the biggest chunk of the content. But now they basically raid log. And it's just funny to hear that kind of terminology in the scope of, obviously Classic isn't vanilla. Not directly like 1-to-1, but it's funny to hear like, I was gonna raid log real quick and do my whole Molten Core run in an hour. I'll be on soon. I'm like, all right. It's great.
yeah. You do your Molten Core on Nixia, you don't even have a full raid group, you have like 20 people, clear it in an hour and everything, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
The phases are pretty fun, new phase comes out, you do a whole bunch of new content, and then you're AFK for 2 to 3 months again. The biggest problem is that when the final phase comes out, what happens then? That's the one thing. Do they make new content for it, or do they just release BC? Who knows?
We'll find out. We didn't really get much information about that at this BlizzCon. I imagine that's going to be a topic at next year's BlizzCon. So we'll see where it goes by then, because we'll probably be in AQ by that point. So the next discussion will be on people's minds. So we'll see. But Corejo, now let's go back, not to Classic back, but this topic goes to you first, because you actually have a bit more under your belt from the warrior standpoint, since Vale's a Warlords baby. But Wrath to Kata to Mop to Warlords to Legion to BFA and soon to Shadowlands. What do you think of the dev journey of the Fury Warrior specifically? Because I think if you look at it like expansion to expansion, not a lot changes. But if you jump an expansion, like if you look at Warlords Fury Warrior to now, it's like, whoa, how did we get here? So what is your take on just expansion to expansion of how Fury has evolved and changed over the last decade, maybe?
Well, definitely starting from Wrath, Fury was quite a bit slower than the gameplay is now, right? The game was slower. And then with Kata coming around, you start seeing more of the modern WoW coming around. You got way more abilities that do damage and a lot less utility. Warrior used to have a lot of utility back in the day. You had defensive stance and berserker stance, which are just cool things to have. But in defensive stance, you had you can equip a shield and just cast shield block and tank for a bit, shield wall. You could use spell reflection or mass spell reflection if you talented it, or you can use vigilance back on Warlords as a DPS warrior to help your tanks out. That felt super amazing. The one thing from every expansion from basically MOP is that Warrior has lost more and more utility over time. Because the MOP was probably the pinnacle of Warrior for both specs. Design-wise for PvE and PvP, there was so much cool stuff you can do as a warrior because Fury felt amazing. You had Heroic Strike, you had Colossus Smash that was a very frequent window and it felt amazing. Hit crit after crit over and over again at a very fast pace and just burst targets down insanely quickly, and your abilities hit very hard.
Oh, you cut out right there, sir.
Oh, really? Okay, but
There you
yeah, in like a late mop, you felt amazing. You hit very, very, very hard. You felt you chunked things. It felt amazing. However, when you transition into Warlords, that's when you see Warrior are probably at the worst design, pretty much almost in modern WoW for Marathon. Fury felt really bad because you lost Colossus Smash, you lost Heroic Strike, and now your rotation is just fundamentally just not as exciting. And also you had your filler Wild Strike. It was a 0.75 second GCD. It threw off your game a lot because all of a sudden that one ability is just way faster than the rest. Honestly, it was the worst feeling ability pretty much I've ever played since Warrior existed. It felt like it just did nothing. As a filler, it felt like you're just dumping resource. Your other abilities still costed resource, except for Bloodthirst, I believe. But it's just like Wild Strike just felt like so out of place. They wanted to speed up the Fury gameplay, but instead of adding just like an off GCD rage dump, which was Heroic Strike, they just made Wild Strike 0.75 second GCD, and it just felt awful. And that's when Arms was also at the lowest point too. Arms was just literal 20 APM. It was no procs or anything before.
Oh yeah, gosh.
It was the most dull spec I've ever played. It was literally just they took Arms from Classic and plopped it into Warlords. That's literally what it was. Until HFC, where you gotta abuse a tier with a random stuff like that. But even then, it just still felt the worst spec to ever play. But then in Legion BFA, I think they really hit their stride for Fury again. I think at least in Legion, you had your Battlecry abuse. You can just abuse 100% crit chance, proc your all the time with Convergence of Fates, high in-rage uptime, super high mastery values. So you can abuse trinkets and stuff like that, like Draw to Souls, of course. Fury was all about abusing that mastery and 100% crit chance all the time. Yeah. And then moving into BFA, I prefer BFA Fury over Legion only for a few things. The two major things was one, Execute now generates rage instead of costing. Because in Legion, you would just stack Juggernaut on a boss over and over again, and you pretty much ignored Rampage until you got the Legendary Ring and started proccing a free Rampage once in a while. But yeah, it felt really bad where you only had two abilities that costed rage, and one of them was basically worthless in Execute unless you got a free proc of it. And then like in BFA, they removed that, right? In Fury right now, it might be a very simple spec in BFA, but it's actually one of the most well-designed in my opinion. There's not much in depth, but a lot of the spec just works. It just works well. You get your Whirlwind that cleaves your abilities around, and that just feels really good. It still feels like a warrior, because at least for Fury, you only have the one Rage Spender Rampage, which doesn't feel like a warrior compared to like Arms, where it only spends rage and barely generates. But yeah, I mean, honestly, BFA Fury is probably the best iteration of Fury since Legion and MOP in general. Kata and Warlords were kind of the more darker times, but Kata still had its high points, especially later in the later expansion.
Yeah, that's. And, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, mine was like a button hook on that. Is it some parts of the community, and this is sort of the thing that I sort of sponge up over time, either from my Twitch chat or my Discord, or like browsing the other class Discords or from other guests, and you just sort of summarize that out really well too. Is that some parts of the community herald that Fury, just in its own bubble, is one of the potentially best iterations. Probably a couple of tweaks here and there you could imagine, but every spec could use that. But when you ask like the aggregate of all 36 specs, like what is playing the best? What do you hear about as playing the best? You hear Fury Warrior, Discipline Priest, the top two that I hear about. So it's herald's one of the best design specs to play in BFA, and just the way that the haste scaling overall flow works, the moment-to-moment feel potentially is the best it's been in WoW, outside of when you went way back, right, to your added utility, because really, like, your DPS is one thing, but your utility is like the other half of it that you definitely have a sore spot for. But
Yeah, that's just the one thing I really I think one of my guildmates said something like that. If you
Hmm.
compare, say, like a rogue or like a fury warrior in general, you can see where the difference of utility is absolutely insane. Fury has lost utility every single expansion
Yeah.
since Warlords. None of Warlords actually you got quite a bit. You got like Vigilance and Mass Reflection, but then like Legion happened and you lost all the cool stuff. You lost defensive stance. You lost like putting on a shield and like tanking for a couple seconds. You used to be able to do that a couple of times, not too much, but like just a lot of the cool utility that Warrior used to have. You had banners too. Banners were really fun, honestly. Sure, Skull Banner was kind of like broken, but there's still some cool things, especially in PvP, where a lot of outplay potential from a warrior, where you switching stances, hitting disarms, hitting banners,
Yeah.
hitting a mocking banner from the Hunter Stampede of Tontal's pets was super cool and stuff like that. And I'm kind of glad they're coming back to the utility with the reintroduction of Shattering Throw. One of the abilities I really truly missed, and I'm glad it's back.
Vil, what do you think? Do you agree, disagree? Why or why not? What are your thoughts on the dev journey too, and everything that Corey has said?
Oh, well, at least from Legion to BFA, I think Antor's Fury was very well designed. Only if you had the legendaries though, and I guess maybe that's why they went this way. Like
Right.
BFA Fury is still really good, and I think the built-in haste mechanic makes the spec just so much better. Without that, I'm not sure if the spec would play like nearly as well. But it is lacking some depth, I think, and utility, as you guys have mentioned a few times. And execute has kind of fallen off like quite a bit. It's and this is for arms too. It's like a very small increase just in general when you get to execute. Whereas in Legion, it was like kind of the other way. All your damage is an execute, and you did very little outside of it.
Right.
It's hard to tell what I prefer, but I think overall, I think Antor's Fury was probably my favorite iteration so far.
Oh.
And yeah, that's one thing I also want to add is that execute is probably right now the weakest it's ever been in history almost. Because for arms, we're excluding cooldowns here because arms can abuse some cooldowns and make execute hit very hard. But for arms, execute's only like a 5% increase over the regular rotation at best. And for Fury, it's about 5 to 10% too. It's a very weak spell compared to, say, Warlords, where Arms Warrior, I cast execute 7 times and it's 50% my damage, right? It's a very different kind of warrior at that point because your execute is definitely not as strong. It's definitely a strong thing to have, but it's definitely not that all of a sudden boss hits 20% and you see its health pool just chunk every single time you see an execute cast.
That's part of why, or at least a little bit of why execute might feel a little bit wet noodly now. And just to put this in a bit of a parody state too, like with the Fire Mages right now, when we had their show, they talk about how there's a bit of a pro and con to so much of your damage being in your cooldown window. It makes your cooldown really feel incredibly valuable, right? So much of Fire Mage's damage right now is in combustion. So the warrior sort of bread and butter in this discussion, depending on how Fury or Arms is always taken to it, is been execute. Now, we know that more specs are getting their executes back in Shadowlands. We know that kill shots coming back for hunters. Don't know how that's gonna work for survival, but whatever. We'll find out. Is if execute was too much of your damage, then you were really, it's like that was the meme last expansion. You bring an arms warrior for the last 20% of the fight, and they just kind of like run around for the first 80%, like, I'm here, don't worry, I'm helping. And that was obviously a little too far in one direction, where you were only brought like the very end of an encounter where your damage actually shines. So I'm sure that's a dev journey that Blizzard is still on, is how much of it matters. And now that they did that, we wanted to bring back some of the classic feel where your auto attacks meant more. I think it's almost resoundingly negative from most melee that just right-clicking on the boss shouldn't be like 40 to 50% of our damage. That's pretty lame because the game isn't balanced that way anymore. The game is balanced by doing your rotation properly and your moment-to-moment gameplay decisions and how you deal your A, B, and C and X, Ys, and Zs, how you layer your cooldowns when you choose them. And so much of our damage is melee is just, I right-click the boss. So that pulls damage away from your abilities.
Yeah, and execute's a hard thing to balance because you either make execute insanely broken and their
Sure.
damage outside execute super weak,
Hmm.
or you have the problem where sometimes say even in arms and in Tumas Argaris, its damage was pretty good outside the execute phase. And then execute happens, all of a sudden they go from like number 4 and they're by far number 1.
Right.
And then of course you have people abusing Juggernaut in Taurus, where literally, say Argus, probably the best prime example for progression. Super long fight, super long execute. Your Fury Warrior already doing pretty good damage is by far the number 1 damage.
Yeah.
It wasn't even close. Juggernaut was a really fun trait at times, but 99% of the time it was unplayable because like you get 20 stacks and you're forced off the boss, right? Like it's only in Taurus where Juggernaut fully shined, and I'm glad it's gone, but I'm also kind of sad where they could have designed it so much better.
Yeah. But I guess that brings us over now to Vil. I gotta get your opinions on this because you just basically played with the Legion artifact for 2 solid years, and then they just pulled it away. And yes, that was the decision, and yes, that was the sort of the course of action for Legion. That was their special thing. But what do you miss? What do you want back looking forwards towards Shadowlands?
We brought this up earlier, I think, before the show, but I think every Fury Warrior wants Odin's Fury back, even if it's similar to what we have right now in Dragon's Roar. Just the animation and the feel of Odin's Fury. I don't think any warrior is like ever gonna forget that if they played Legion. The Fury artifact itself, though, like the traits in it, they really weren't anything special. It was mostly just damage increases. There wasn't really too much you could feel. There was one where you would not miss auto attacks if you're in rage, but that's the only one I can actually think of that kind of changed how you played, or you could feel the difference.
Okay. Corey, what are your hopes for Bright Halinka to bring back? Other than Shattering Throw, which was only confirmed at BlizzCon, but what else you got?
I mean, I would love stances back, but I think we're too far from that point to bring them back.
Oh,
and
gosh.
especially in Mists, they were pretty broken because in Berserker stance, you got more rage from taking damage. So you would intentionally just take more damage, do way more damage. But yeah, I think we're at that point where it's just too far gone to actually bring those back. But one thing I really do miss from Fury and a little bit of Arms is that your abilities used to hit really, really hard as a warrior. Your crits were massive, especially for Arms. Arms abilities hit kind of like a wet noodle most of the time. But like I really miss like playing in Warlords and where like I cast execute and boom, it's like 2 mil damage, right? It feels really satisfying to hit those buttons. And that's where part of Odin's Fury, why most people miss it,
Yeah.
because it felt amazing. It just see the damage, you see your damage spike up.
Mm-hmm.
And moving into BFA, you lost a lot of that from both specs for Arms and Fury, where execution is tuned lower and all your abilities just don't matter as much because of melee hits are becoming a thing, right? Coming up 40% of your damage, right? For Fury, it's like 20% of your damage. For Arms, about the same. Where back in Legion, Arms all attacks are like maybe 3% of your damage at best.
Vil, do you agree? Do you want stances back, or are you not in the stances camp?
I never played with them too much, really, but I agree. Berserker stance is probably shouldn't come back, and it probably won't, just because it did lead to some degenerate gameplay, like Standing in Fire, like Corey said.
Yep.
I think defensive stance for Arms baseline would be nice. Maybe a bit better version than what they have right now, because Arms is just so disgustingly squishy. I think it might be the squishiest spec in the game. I haven't seen anything worse.
Probably next to Hunters, I imagine, in some way.
Yeah, it's pretty weak. It has exactly 0 self-healing.
Yeah. Yeah, at least Fury has all of the self-sustain that trickles in, and obviously that would just impact more if you get any leech on your gear. You just have like that Demon Hunter feel. But
yeah, as a Fury Warrior, I am invincible. I can soak 7 stacks in a star and live almost. Like I lived the full 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I pop in Rage Regeneration, I'm healing my entire health bar almost in 1 Bloodthirst. It's insane how tanky Fury is compared to Arms, where your defensives are one of the worst in the game, and then defensive stance is a pretty strong cooldown, but then you also gimp your damage by 10%, which sucks a lot.
Hmm. You have to talent it, right? It's only a talent. It's not baseline.
It's only a
It's
talent.
only a talent.
Yeah.
And the
like-
problem is if you have to hit defensive stance, you might as well just respec Fury
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah. It's
And
not.
then the whole 30 and 60 row, the defensives and mobility trees for talents for both warrior specs are absolutely horrid. Because for both specs at 30, it's Stormbolt, Impending Victory, and Double Time, which is 2 charges. So you're choosing between healing, a stun, and mobility. When the 60 row, you're also choosing between defensives and mobility. It feels kind of weird where like they're kind of split up. And I think that's where warrior is the weakest, where there's just a bunch of talents that are just misplaced. Defensive ones, because like they're just like they're in weird spots. You shouldn't have to choose between a DPS increase and then say a stun, honestly, in my opinion at least, because like you don't take the stun in a Mythic Plus, you're kind of gimping your entire team, but also you're gimping your damage if you do take that stun. And then that stun is almost just worthless forever in raids, right? You never use stuns in raids.
Yeah, there's a couple of rows. I think that's one of the things too in this whole dev journey we'll have to see is because if Blizzard just put like 3 mobility choices on the same tier, which we've seen before, then people just take like the best one and never spec off of it. So when they move them around a bit, it gives you options to like double up on mobility or double up on self-sustaining kind of things like defensives. But then that means that either you get too much mobility. I mean, like again, double time plus bounding stride is definitely an extra lot of it. But if you only could pick one of the 2, it changes a lot of the pacing. So it is kind of weird. Like what should be baseline? Should you only really have like one choice in this category? And that's sort of where we're at with what's Helenka going to do. He's the director of World of Warcraft combat now. That's his position. It is his 100% job with his team to do all of this. And we'll see if Shadowlands is just really a great unpruninating or whatnot. But I guess
it's gonna be very interesting too, because like you said, the 36 specs are pretty much all separate classes.
Yep.
I think Warrior is one of the few classes where a lot of abilities are actually shared, so it's probably an easier time. Let's say like a Frost Mage and a Fire Mage, it's gonna be a hard time trying to deciding what's gonna be baseline for all 3 specs, or what we remove, right? Because there's definitely some abilities that are going to get removed in general, right? Because like your entire as a Fire Mage, you don't have any Frost spells except like Ice Block and Frost Nova. Yeah, so like, what are you going to remove to have some Frost abilities in there that are just baseline?
Frost Firebolt's coming back.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, stuff like Fire Blast and Arcane Explosion too. It's all the specs have had that stuff in the past, and I think just a lot of people want to see that. But some stuff definitely is probably going to get cut, like you said.
Well, so again, I got to bounce back and forth, right, Vil? I'm not trying to pick on you here, but since you're newer to the whole warrior discussion, you have a different perspective on this. You never got to play Single-Minded Fury. And I know this comes up like Two-Handed Death Knight and Dual-Wield Death Knight for Frost, right? Same kind of discussion comes up for Fury. What is your take on the SMF versus TG, Titan's Grip versus Single-Minded Fury madness? Because like, is it fine that you're using two-handers, but shouldn't ARMS use the two-hander and Fury go back to like that Berserker 2 one-hander style? What is your either way?
In a perfect world, if they were tuned equally in like every situation, I think it'd be fine to bring it back. But if it can't be tuned like perfectly, then I think they should just stay with what they have. It'd be nice if you could use one-handers just for like more options. Sometimes getting two-handers with like current raid comps can be kind of annoying.
Yep.
Especially when there's like not a lot of melee and you just have to kind of depend on yourself to loot the weapon. So getting a one-hand option would be nice too. I think the way they have it right now is just better for tuning and just safer.
How many one-handed weapons even get used now? Like Prot uses one, both Prot Warrior, Prot Paladin will use one. And it's like Outlaw Rogue. Is that it? And Frosty K now.
Frosty K,
those
DH,
two.
right?
DH2, yeah, but those are agility.
Well, those would be agility, right? And they don't make agility as strength ones. It's always agility weapons and strength weapons. Yeah.
It's a very weird thing because, like, even most of the time, Titan script is just generally the way to go because there's just more weapon damage. What's Mott the love, right?
Well,
There's
right
like a
now,
very
yeah.
few meta time. Yeah, there's a few meta times where single-minded fury is better. Even then, at the end expansion, you're gonna be equipping two-handers to hit super hard GCDs every time. It's
Yeah.
not like one or the other was faster anyways. One just auto attacked a little bit faster. That was it.
So, and a couple of comments come by in chat about, why I keep talking about ARMS and the Fury Warrior show. Well, it's going to sprinkle them both in. I literally opened the show saying that. So, with that said, the follow up to that topic is when do you choose or decide what to play? Fury versus ARMS, ARMS versus Fury. Is it similar to the Mage situation where you play whatever does the most damage forehead? Or do you find yourself actually swapping encounter to encounter? I know, Corey, you're getting this one first because you just said that ARMS is like the pinnacle warrior DPS spec. But say if Archie and crew does Sims and say Fury does 2k more than ARMS, do you just immediately go Fury? How do you decide between the two specs?
Most of the time, that's the case for the past since Legion in BFA. That's been most of the case. It's either one spec is just doing more damage than the other. Like for mostly for Fury in ARMS, like in Legion, it was basically who could abuse more things. So ARMS abused Fury, Focus Rage back in the early days, and then that got nerfed to the ground, and Fury got buffed, and Fury started abusing things like Convergence of Fates and its super strong tier, and it kind of went back and forth, whoever had the more broken stuff. In BFA, you actually saw a couple things that were a bit different. ARMS back in Uldir simmed terribly low. It was the one of the lowest sims ever. I think Disc Priests were almost simming as much damage. However, you played ARMS because in Uldir you could abuse Sweeping Strikes, Massacre, which is 35% execute, and Blade Storm a lot. On every single fight, you either got an insane long execute phase, a ton of 2-target cleave, or a ton of burst AoE, which ARMS was good at all three. It's still really good at 2-target cleave and that kind of stuff, but it also got a tad nerfs here and there. If they didn't nerf ARMS at all after Uldir, it would be probably about the same position that it is now. But back in the day, like in HFC especially, you played as a warrior, you played both specs. You played ARMS and you played Fury because ARMS say was better at single target, 2-target cleave, and then Fury had better AoE. That's one thing I really hope that does come back next expansion, is that I want to play a warrior and I want to play both specs because that's fun. Just playing both specs and playing fights differently because you're different spec. It's just fun to do.
Yeah.
I don't like being pigeonholed to one spec most of the time.
Phil, what is your take on that then?
Oh, well, this expansion has been pretty bad when it comes to swapping between specs. Really, right now, the only time you'd play ARMS is very fast kills, like what we have right now, like 230-ish kills, or 2-target execute. But since Uldir, like he said, they basically nerfed ARMS like 4 times when it wasn't really necessary. And then for the rest of the X-Pack, or until now, it's been pretty bad.
Sorry, Phil. There's one weird time where you could play ARMS on Jaina. You could abuse cleaving for more rage and stuff like that, but even then, it still wasn't that much broken over Fury, and Fury was in general better overall.
It was like barely better than Fury, but that was like the one time ARMS saw use outside of Uldir. I played it on Jaina actually too. It was like barely better then. There was definitely an argument to just stay Fury, just because ARMS survivability is so bad, and that's like another reason you just stay Fury too. If ARMS only does like 1k more DPS, like why not just play Fury where you're basically a demon hunter and you can't die?
Yeah.
The only thing you're missing is immunity. That's it.
Yep. I mean, that's a couple of that comments actually scrolled by in chat though, about that Fury Warrior is just a handful of things behind Havoc, so then why not just play Havoc? That's like the next step, right?
It's kind of true in terms of survivability. Yeah, I think Fury damage is like a little better right now, but
sure.
Yeah, and yeah, it's like Fury and ARMS. Like the weird thing is too is that back in the past too, both specs had a clear niche of what they did better. And nowadays, like even though Arms is better on 2-target execute cleave, Fury is still not that bad at it. It still can do it fairly well. That's the thing. Just the one thing that happens quite often is just that, sure, Arms might be better on this fight, but say Fury is just tankier and its damage is pretty much almost on par as well. So like, why not just play Fury and heal your entire health bar every 3 seconds, right?
Well, here, I mean, that's you. It's almost like you have the notes in front of you, because that's like the next topic that I wanted to bring up was going over what you choose between Fury and Arms in this discussion. And the same kind of thing happens when I go over the pure DPSs, right? When we cover Hunters and Mages and Warlocks and Rogues, is when do you choose? Because if you just love playing Outlaw, but it's not great numerically, or the, shout out to anyone still playing Subtlety right now that's still like those couple of thousand parses. If you just enjoy playing Subtlety and can make it work, then that's awesome, right? Then play with the spec you want to play if you're not like super numbers focused only. But if we're bringing up numbers then and mathy stuff, and as some might say, and Vil might say, my parse. When you look at Arms and Fury, what are their what niche, quiche do they fill? Because if you could choose to play, like what Corejo said, Arms for certain fights or Fury for certain fights, what encounters do they excel at? Is one more the AoE focused one more like, I mean, it's not Legion anymore where you bring an Arms Warrior just for execute the last 20% of the fight. So I mean, Core, you sort of opened that Pandora's box, but Vil, because of the whole like number side of things and caring about that a little more, at least that's what the memes say. But to give you that first thing, what's Fury strongest at? What's Arms strongest at?
Well, unfortunately, right now, Fury is better at everything except 2-target execute cleave with very specific gear.
Yeah,
and that's just kind of a problem in BFA too, when there's no like tier or to change up the meta, which basically is what happened to Warrior and Legion. Each tier just kind of swapped between the specs. Like in TOS, Arms had an insane tier, and then in Taurus it was Fury. If the specs aren't changed like number-wise with tuning, you just stay Fury the whole time, because Arms just doesn't get anything. Also, Arms, the problem with Arms too is not only do you need like 2-target execute cleave, if you don't have the 3 test of might traits, it's so bad. And getting that during progression can be definitely kind of difficult with personal loot.
Corey, what do you have to add to that? Fury strongest at and Arms strongest at?
Yeah, Vil pretty much cleared it, right? Because Fury is better at pretty much everything except for execute 2-target cleave. Arms is only really a spec because it abuses Lucid and Testamite. That's the only reason why it's barely a spec nowadays. If Lucid Dreams didn't exist, Arms would probably be doing tank damage DPS. It is so hilarious just how Lucid carries the entire spec and how many things that Arms just abuses. That's kind of history of Arms. Arms just abuses a shit ton of synergy from talents to gear to trinkets, stuff like that. It just abuses it to do good damage. Even now, you're abusing a lot of stuff, and you're not really putting out that much more damage at times. Even the execute cleave, right? It's just like, sure, it's pretty good, but even then, Fury can do just as well. And especially if you're doing progression on a later end fight, it's kind of hard to get those test of might traits, especially if you start extending, right? You're extending Azeroth, you're getting pretty much no new gear outside of Mythic Plus. So like, if you don't have those 3 test of might traits, you're basically not a spec. It is basically unplayable.
So I had to pull up Test of Might just to make sure I know. My only warrior is still in leveling limbo land, and I usually like playing prot. I don't play the DPS warriors as much. I like tanking. But yeah, Test of Might. So it's when Colossus Smash or Warbreaker expire, your strength is increased by 90 for every 10 rage you spent during the, I guess, the CS window in this case. How much strength does this normally accrue?
A normal test of might window outside of lucid windows and stuff like that, it's probably about 6,000 strength. With lust, no, but listen, with lust and execute, you can get up to about 16,000 strength. that's abusing lucid dreams, because lucid dreams just doubles your rage generation, right?
Right.
And the execute refund gets refunded twice. So you
Yeah, okay.
basically triple your strength almost in execute phase. There's a reason why the execute phase is so good, because you're abusing stuff. Abusing Test of Might, and then also you can overlap Colossus Smash and Test of Might at the same time in execute phase. Your executes are critting for 150k for like 3 or 4 GCDs.
Yeah, well, that's basically the build right now. Is why you're seeing like more streamers and people playing arms on logs. Maybe is just you lucid and execute, and you have like your crit potion, you have font, you have core. You're basically just all in on that like 16,000 strength window with all those trinkets and potions, and you do like 150k in execute. But
Yeah.
that's just the problem with arms too. Is like outside of that, even on execute, you do like no damage still.
Yeah, it's just you're all in that window, and that window is only about 30 seconds long, and then that's it. You're done. That's all you're.
Well, this is so I'm gonna squish the sandwich differently on this one because I still have another in this section, but that's because it's brought up in chat about 1600. Apparently, and this is the comment that the Flamor says is like the scaling issue is what it's aiming towards. Is 1600 strength or this like triple stacking Test of Might? That's strong though, but if strength is still your weakest stat, then how is that? It's because it's an egregious amount that pushes it over. Is that why?
Yeah,
That's
it's just an egregious amount,
Yeah,
and then you overlap that with Colossus Smash, which is a 30% increase window, and then you have like near 100% crit chance.
Yeah,
that's just you're just abusing things to make that window. If Test of Might gave like like mastery or something, with mastery be insane because like you get 6,000% mastery.
Yeah, calm down there.
But Arms just abuses all these things to pull out decent damage at best most of the time. Really good in short kills, but in those longer fights, you're not going to see as much as an increase.
And that's an interesting topic too, and bringing up this scaling discussion to open that up a little bit more. And Zeb touches on it as well in chat. I don't know. It's interesting to hear you use the word abusing a lot instead of something like putting the synergy of this build and this trait and this essence together to make something really work. I guess it depends on how you look at how to figure out the RPG math elements behind the scenes here that Blizzard puts together. Is that I guess there are different terminologies that could be used, but I know what you mean. I think everyone listening knows what you mean as well. You're not saying that. I would say like abuse of something was like Uldir sub-rogues on Zool. That's kind of abuse when you stacked 5, 6, 7, 8 of them, and all it did is just Shuriken Storm, eviscerate, Shuriken Storm, eviscerate, Shuriken Storm, eviscerate, and they just blew the boss up 4 or 5 minutes faster than you should have, versus combining things and coupling them together to make something work, which is the RPG element. It's slotting your materia. In this case, it's 3 Test of Might and Lucid Dreams, right?
Yeah, abuse and synergy can be used interchangeably in this context, where I just say abuse just because that's just the word I've just been using the entire time, but they can be used interchangeably. And someone said in chat is that, so the issue that there's too much synergy, that overall that the base spec has to be nerfed. That's sometimes what happens. Like back in the last show, is that we were on the cusp of the arms. Arms had basically only worked because it had a lot of synergy with a bunch of stuff. And when they had to break that synergy, Arms' damage was really low, and they had to buff that substantially. I think you got like an overall like 20% aura buff just to make it do good damage because that synergy was so strong. I don't mind them breaking up those synergies, but like it's kind of hard to break them now since like we're at the end of the tier and they said they're not going to rework any specs.
Yeah.
So that's like one thing that's kind of sucky too, without having tier. But earlier, tier changed up the game a little bit. You play different talents because maybe this one talent has synergy with this. But now you're kind of just stuck with the same talents unless they get absolutely gutted.
Gotcha. So the tail end of this bit, then, I want to give you a moratorium moment. If you need to sort of send any, like, no, stop that. And Vil told me this is a bit of a meme, but just to bring it up as the opening bit here, Loyal to the End this really silly Azerite trait where you get additional mastery plus additional mastery up to a cap for anyone else that's wearing Loyal to the End. And then whenever anyone with Loyal to the End dies, you get crit, haste, and versatility equal to the mastery bonus. And I don't know if you've ever partaken in such shenanigans and tomfooleryville, but what's your thoughts on the whole Loyal to the End? I guess someone must know about it, or it must have been developed or used somewhere before anyone realized, like, oh, this is pretty good.
Well, the first I saw of it was, I think it was Honestly they did it during their Queen's Court prog. They just killed like 3 people before they pulled, and then they had soul stones, so they masterized them, and then they would go, and everyone in the raid using Loyal would have like all that stat increase, but they fixed that.
Yep.
And now it's just, I see some of my guildies in chat memeing me, but I don't think people usually do that, but sometimes there's some longs you'll see that have like 30% of the bonus uptime on when someone dies in a log, and yeah, I mean, it's pretty insane. Just getting that and execute with like your second set of cooldowns.
I want to see some Loyal to the End stacks on Ret Pallies, and then person with Loyal to the End dies to activate Loyal stacks on the Ret Pally with Wings and Retribution. That's what's up.
Yeah, that's the juice right there. The funny part too, speaking about Loyal to the End, Arms is actually unable to pick Loyal to the End because the only time where it comes up in the Azerite gear that's good, it competes with, which really sucks because getting those extra free stats and execute would help quite a bit.
But it competes with what?
It competes with Test of Might.
Oh well,
that's just the unfortunate part. That's also why Arms wasn't played too much because you actually just couldn't get Test of Might Loyal to the End without missing on a Test of Might.
Yeah,
you had to get 3 or else you're not playing that spec.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Arms Azure right now is all the best pieces are from the vendor, and it's not like other specs where it's close. Like the vendor pieces are like way ahead, except maybe the helmet, I guess. And you because use a trait too that's only from the vendor, Meticulous Scheming. It's kind of like passed over by people, but Meticulous Scheming is like a really insane haste proc, and Arms just loves haste.
Yep.
And they can proc it really easy too, because when you cast Whirlwind of Fervor Battle, it counts as 2 abilities, so you can proc it really fast.
Oh wow, interesting. Yeah. Well, but I guess that to give you each that teeter totter, right? Corey, do you have anything you want to tell the warrior community out there to just like, no, stop it, just waggle your finger at them? Is there something that comes up that you're just like, no, this isn't a thing? Stop trying to make this a thing.
Stop making Ravager a thing. It's never gonna work. That talent used to be good. There's some meme builds you can do with it, but man, Ravager just for arms and especially for protection. For protection, it's been way worse for so much longer. It's actually really sad how little damage Ravager does for prot. It does like 20,000 damage over 6 seconds, which is 1 thunderclap. Is just Ravager was not changed going into this new expansion, and it really showed how just weak it is because it's just a product of 4 years.
Yep. Vil, what's your no stop it?
I guess mostly just it doesn't come up too much now anymore, but the scaling meme, like Fury scales better. It's really just coming down to tuning for the specs and like just numbers. Because your spec gonna do 5% more damage with this patch note. Just stuff like that.
There's no breakpoints that mean anything anymore, really, for at least for Warrior. So like it's just whoever gets buffed more, whoever gets nerfed more is whoever gets played. Or has the better tier or Azerite, whatever at this point.
Zeb, you 2 weapons greater than 1 weapon. That's not. Oh no. So then, what's evolving with Fury and Arms builds moving into patch 8.3? Because I'm gonna slap up this this Wowhead post real quick here, and I gotta ask, and YouTube comments chime in, Twitch chat chime in as well if you're playing a Warrior, Arms or Fury. How many runs of King's Rest 15 pluses are you going to trudge through to try to land yourself this bad boy right there? So, if you already were farming Getiku, the Cut of Death from King's Rest, now would you farm it if it had a Dragon Spine trophy attached? Because that's a thing. Core, how many of these runs are you gonna have to go on to get this stupid sword?
When I'm on World of Warcraft and patch 8.3, you're either seeing me in the raid or in King's Rest. That's it.
Or
I'm living in those two places. Or Mechanon too, because those rings are also pretty good.
The rings, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, you're gonna see me balancing between all three of those places. Pretty much nothing else. Don't need World Quest if you're just doing Mythic Plus all day.
Yeah, but that weapon is just it's so disgusting. Like in my single target set, I still use a 430 base from like a Mythic 10, and that's like 4 months after the raid came out or something, 5 months. It's just so hard to replace. You need to get like a 450 weapon, I think, for it to be better. At least for Fury. For arms, eye level matters a little more.
Sure.
Because Fury, you can toss in your offhand, and your offhand damage doesn't matter as much. So you can just toss a low level with a really strong effect. And well, arms, where it's like 5 eye level, I think beats Getaku, or about 5 to 10 give or take. Because you only got the one weapon, right?
Right. Well, that's the interesting part about this is because there's 3 tiers of the racing pulse effect that'll be based on the eye level of the weapon, but obviously this is Mythic 15. So it's gonna be 35 corruption at that ready. And then one of those, not that bad. That'll actually probably chip down right around to 10 to 15, no problem, with some early corruption resistance. This won't be that bad to wear. Up to like 39 is sort of the cutoff point. Once you hit 40, that's when stuff gets a little bit icky. So wearing that much corruption won't be too bad. But this is for casters. If you haven't farmed enough Balefire branches in this expansion, the next Balefire branch has like the stacking Leviathan's Lure in the form of the Infinite Star proc. So that's pretty it's actually free damage, right? But it's going to be interesting to see how the corrupted gear works. There are some people saying that it's a worse system replacing Titan Forging. Even if eye level is now eye level again, we still have to deal with something else. But there's also your new weapon, and then this talking about the whole build thing at 8.3. What is this discussion about how Fury Warrior might use like the Feral Druid staff?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The agility weapon, 2-handed staff from, I think it's like the third boss, whatever, is that it has a proc is that whenever you're hitting auto attack, has a chance to do like 2% of your max HP. And that's actually really strong since Fury auto attacks a lot.
Yeah.
And you can wear 2 of them, right? Or just tossing your offhand where the damage doesn't matter. So you just beat someone with an agility staff, which already there is an agility weapon that's almost as good as a Getaku from the first boss in Mythic EP. It's about like 1 or 2% behind. It's actually not that far. You can drop the 800 strength for super strong proc and deal a ton of damage. It also depends on the proc rate on it too, right? If it's like 1 proc per minute, it's gonna be really bad. But if it's like 10 procs per minute, and if it scales with haste, it's just gonna just proc all the time. You're doing a lot of damage because Fury also has more HP because of 2 weapons, 2-hand weapons. It's just amazing synergy with the spec.
It's the it's the Onzigvra, I believe is what it's called. Auto attacks. Yeah, auto attacks have a 25% chance to bite the target's soul. They did nerf this, so it's obviously a 1 in 4 swings.
Yeah.
But you'll deal 2% of your health in bonus damage. And you heal for that amount. So obviously you want more healing. But what's your swing timer once you get really going on Fury, right? You probably swing at like one-handed sword levels with giant 2-handers, so
yeah. I think in about a 3-4 minute kill of a Savara, I'm getting about 200 auto attacks off. Maybe
sure.
a bit more if I get more haste.
Yeah. Because your
your swing timer is about 1-hand speed within rage out.
Yeah, your other weapon, I'm trying to find it here. It's the frontal AoE one.
Devastation's Hour.
Devastation's Hour right here. Your attacks have a chance to trigger a beam of twilight devastation, dealing damage equal to 5% of your health to all enemies in front of you. Yeah. That one's at 75 corruption, though.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is that 75 corruption? That's a lot to ask even later on in the expansion.
Wait, why is that at 75, but the Feral Druid Kitty Cat staff is 25? That must not be updated
I think
yet.
it's because it's AoE. Like that was their intention. But
It's like their perceived power level of it, right? So like the weaker ones are gonna have weaker corruption, right? And the
Sure.
perceived stronger ones are gonna have larger in corruption, even though some of the lower corruption ones are better than any other weapon, right? Some of the effects I don't feel like they really know
Right.
that some effects are way stronger than others, but maybe they do and they just haven't changed it yet.
Oh,
Every single week that system changes, I like it more and then I hate it more every single week.
we talked about that before in the show, and they that was a design goal going into BFA again to make auto attacks. I joked about it earlier in the stream. I clicked the boss. Why would they put 40% of our damage, 30 to 40 to 50% of our damage is just clicking the boss? And if you add something that then amplifies clicking the boss, it seems like that's going in, because all other effects here are actually kind of neat, right? There are some neat abilities and weapons here, because again, not a lot of loot in the game right now is very iconic. You don't remember much. And there are some sprinkled throughout the past expansions you remember, but I think Blizzard's trying to make you, like, if you get this weapon, like if you get Devastation's Hour and it just slaps, and you use it like the whole rest of the expansion, you remember that weapon previous expansions from now. That's their whole goal, I think. But then
kind of like the Dragon Soul weapons, right?
Yeah.
Girth, you get Girthlack.
Girthlack,
You're set. You're here to.
Yep. But I guess
I think the first. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go, Vil. Go for it.
I was just gonna say, I think the first iteration that they had on the weapon system was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Like the AoE sword especially, it would be really nice for Fury because the spec is target capped. With how many targets you can cleave. So having like an uncapped AoE ability would be really nice. And you can notice how on like the one-handed agility weapons, like for Outlaw Rogues and Demon Hunters specifically, they put a single target per.
Yep.
Trying to like balance around the specs a little more with those weapons. It wouldn't be like a huge power swing, but it would be nice. And now it's just 75 corruption. You can't use the weapon until after you kill the last boss or something.
Yeah, it's also a bit of the wonder is that you're going to have maybe 20-25 corruption resistance. You get your extra minor if you really pump your AP, which is 10, and your cloak will get up to like 15 to 18 by the time potentially raid starts. So you still can't wear it. You're going to be 50 plus corruption right off the bat, and that's when things starting to get sticky icky, and that's like not the good kind. So that's not how much corruption you want when you're progressing on mythic bosses. Unless you just get babysat the whole raid. Maybe the damage is worth it.
Yeah. Do you purify it now because the island upgrade, or do you sit on it because it comes off N'Zoth and you don't have many 2-hand strength users in your raid, so it doesn't drop ever, right?
And if it's usable too, that's like 75 corruption somehow. Like you can actually use it and it's worth. That means every single other piece of corrupted gear you have to cleanse probably. Yes. Like you won't be able to wear any other gear.
Right. You basically, or you hold on to it before when you can.
Yeah, and then you just like out a weapon for a little bit,
but there is a ceiling, right? We know, at least current values, we know how high the legendary cloak's going to scale, and we do know that the legendary cloak has that new active ability where you're immune to corruption for a little bit, so you can sort of macro that into your cooldowns if they line up properly, so you can not get the thing from beyond to come out of nowhere and slap you and kill you when you're doing your big old burst window. So there's some like gameplay there where you might have to deal with it if it's worth the trade-off. That's the whole point of the system, right? They want you to have a kiss curse, or this like good and bad balance, this yin and yang. But then what they've also done is they've said, and to some specs I've heard this is not entirely genuine, or it's still being tweaked. The Azerite change up for the raid coming up is that they have pinpointed to hopefully put your 2 best Azerite traits. They just given up, basically. Blizzard's just like, this is what everyone's speccing, give them to them. But I was told that Cold Steel, Warm Blood is on all your raid pieces for Fury. Is that correct? So you just get 3 raid pieces and you're just like, good to go?
Yeah, it's a pretty good setup next year. It's, maybe this is their intention. I know Archie has mentioned it to me.
Yeah.
You can get a really good setup from raid just as a starter setup, but like your BIS is going to end up being a mix of vendor and PvP pieces. And then for arms, it's I think it's going to be triple vendor pieces again, unfortunately, but we'll have
Really?
to see too.
Yeah, meticulous scheming and tests might just go so well together. It's kind of hard to replace that.
Dang. Well, residuums are setting. Thank the devs that they finally put seasonal residuum in. Took them 4 seasons of the entire expansion to make it so that you only get, well, we didn't have it at first, but still. They shouldn't have this egregious amount. So, you know, Flex isn't going to have 4 million residuum on launch day and just buy every piece of gear he wants. It'll all go away. He'll have lots of silver, though. Congrats on your silver. But, and you can't even hoard the residuum. You can't spend residuum now and hoard Azerite. People test on the PTR. If you crush it on 8.3, it gives you 0. So you can't even hold it. So they've done that. So it resets the residuum vendor. So you got to farm that up over the course of however many weeks we have going to the new raid. But is there a early consensus then on the what's the warrior community feeling about the corrupted system and the Azerite essence changes sort of as a overall, like, throw a blanket on it, Corejo? What have you guys sorted together?
I feel like most of us just determined that the Zoth sword, the harsh, is not worth getting for a long time. Even it might not be worth it all because the effect it's just not that good. Because like it's about 2 procs per minute, so it's not that much. And especially on single target, you're gonna be wanting other things. The corruption system overall is just, I like and dislike so much of it. And the one thing I really heavily dislike, I don't like how the weapon effects can roll on gear. That's the one thing I wish they just removed completely.
I think the first iteration of the weapons was just pretty solid. You can maybe put a little more corruption on AoE weapons, but 75 is just ridiculous. Like, as they have it right now, I think Fury and Arms are going to play exactly the same, honestly, and use even the same gear, like the Azerite we were talking about.
It's also somewhat weird too, is that at 75 corruption, and the weapon isn't unique, you'll never be able to wear 2 of them though. You just can't.
Probably never ever. Yeah, it's impossible.
You'll be at 100 even if you ever got like 70 plus corruption resistance somehow, if it's scaled that high, you still couldn't. You'd put 2 weapons on, you'd be at 100 corruption, and you would have all the debuffs. All of them. So you can only have 1, just that extra flavor. I mean, that's why you can, your offhand will be the Getiku, the cut of death. See? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I don't want to farm King's Rest. It has to be one of the most miserable dungeons to be put in there too, right? It can't be like, a Tal'Dazar where you can run the place in 15 minutes. It has to place it in King's Rest at one place.
It's a spicy dungeon. Vil, do you have anything you wanted to add to what you've sort of gotten either from your guild perspective or from the warrior community about the 8.3 systems coming in?
I think the corruption is alright. Hopefully they do go back on the weapons. Unfortunately for warrior, it's looking kind of lame. Just no changes basically in how you play. You might have like a little more haste from that one miner that gives you haste when someone uses essence, but other than that, I think warrior's gonna be basically the same. You probably still play Fury too, unfortunately. Like, unless you get really lucky and loot the specific Azerite, I don't see how you can play Arm.
Is anything changing with your guys' Essence layout though? What's your new 3rd miner most likely going to be? What's the scuttlebutt on that?
The Lethal Strikes one, where it's like the Crucible miner, but does like it probably procs more and execute. I think that's generally the one where people are going to use the most. Other than that, the other ones are just not that great. Like the one that it has the chance to like reduce the cooldown of your major essence. Yeah. The problem with the essence right now for warrior is that they line up with your cooldown super well. Okay. So if you desync it, you're just sitting on it. You're not doing anything with it. For arms, you can probably see that you can get more lucid windows because you don't need the blaze storm after a lucid window always. But yeah, you're probably not going to be using anything new and interesting, honestly. The specs are playing the same the entire expansion.
I did read from some of my mathy crafty friends, and this is in the newest build, I want to say. They're still trying to figure it all out, but this condensed life force was also nerfed again recently. Blizzard is definitely trying to push people away from just all using condensed life force. there was something like its attack modifier string was lowered, so it'll just attack slower. Like the actual Rocky Boy will attack.
Yeah, it's still
slower.
25% slower.
Yeah, and they lowered the damage debuff from the 5% to 3%, if I'm not mistaken. So that was the previous nerf. But I think they're scared of 20 condensed life forces plus lust windows, because the healers and tanks can use the other essence to pull a DPS essence off of someone, and they can all just use CLF. So they definitely had to nip that in the bud, I suppose, because that would be a huge raid jump in damage if there were 20 of them out or whatever reason, if that even was the strat to use to make like a huge push.
Yeah. And there's also that one essence where it increases your essence damage of all your raid members by like 20%, something like that. So you combo with that, and then you use that one essence miner which reduces the cooldown of condensed life force.
Yeah.
In some PTR testing, I saw some 1 minute 30 cooldown condensed life forces.
Oh.
And just like it can get pretty lucky. That's the extreme though. And as Lucius' character just said in Twitch chat, is that CLF just has everything you want.
It's true.
It just has damage increase and haste. Like what spec doesn't like that? Honestly, pretty much almost. If you can't abuse Lucid or Vision Perfection, you're using that.
Yep, we had the Boomkin show recently, and they're basically stuck to Vision procs, right? Because it actually gives them more of that rotational change with both resources and damage and that whatnot. So they haven't actually ever really done the lineups, and also depends too. It sort of either it lines up with you on like a 1-3-6 or whatever, like on the pull, or it gives you the desynced where you get like that every so many cooldowns, you get like the big 3-minute window coming back around with CLF. So I think they're trying to pull people away from only using it to give you to play the ones that actually have more gameplay elements. I know, at least in the Enhanced Shaman community, I heard the rumblings of Blood of the Enemy as the main, because it's just like that huge blast and that moment to moment where you can combine it with things like Sundering or Ascendance for the first little bit is really strong. So, and that has gameplay rotation, right? Other than just like hitting a 3-minute cooldown, boop, damage. So
yeah, you might see some Blood of the Enemy from Fury Warrior.
Oh.
It's already really good on AoE, and a single target's not too far behind. And it's a pretty engaging essence overall, I think, because like it really maximizes that first 5 seconds.
Yeah.
You can definitely see it on a few fights next year, just from what I've been looking at, like testing wise.
Yeah.
You played it on a few fights this year even, so hopefully we'll get to drop CLF for a little bit. Arms will probably stick with Lucid Major though. Don't really see that changing.
Yeah, that's irreplaceable.
There's actually a build where you might play Lucid Major as Fury, and you use the essence where your CD gets reduced, or your essence gets reduced. But yeah, that comes down to numbers. We'll have to see. It's kind of possible though.
We'll have to definitely wait and find out till 2 a.m. before the patch drops, either on maybe January 7th or January 14th, when you guys will all jump in and figure things out, I suppose, when Archie wants to get the crew going at working on what all the changes are, because we won't really fully know. We don't even have a launch date yet. We're probably not gonna get the launch date for the expansion until probably after the holidays. They were just more raid testing, so they're still percolating away, but early to mid-January, most likely. Raid probably end of January, if not early February. And hopefully Shadowlands Alpha Beta, end of March, early April. That's the wonder there. And we'll get to start seeing what Holinka is working on.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for that. I played a lot of BFA Beta and BFA Beta and Alpha, and I remember going throughout the Beta and Alpha, I'm like, wow, this game is actually getting worse and worse as we progress through the beta. It's actually kind of apparent. Because like, oh look, all these cool changes, right? And then you actually start playing it, and then here's new GCD changes.
Yeah.
And here's some other stuff that's removed. It progressively felt worse and worse. But I hope with Shadowlands that it progressively gets better and better, and they listen to feedback.
Yeah. We'll definitely see. I'm gonna do my damnedest as well. I've been doing this past couple of expansions to help funnel information and bug fixes, and this doesn't work and that doesn't work, and offer some suggestions from the outside looking in. But it'll be a lot to go through for sure. But chat, if you have any questions for our guests, in a few moments, you can start throwing those out there. Copy pastas potentially, but my guests can step away from it if they need to take a quick break, because we're at like that mid section of the show. It just like it just goes, right? And I want to make sure I give another quick shout out to those supporting the show, the stream, and everything in between over on the show's Patreon page. Thank you very much to those of you that are out there at the credits tier and higher, as you're seeing on the screen right now. But of course, if you want more of the show, and there is more of the shows, and if you want to go behind the scenes a little bit on that, then that's links down below here on Twitch, or of course, link down below on Patreon for the links for it on YouTube as well in the description box. But if you also miss part of the show, everything gets archived on the show's YouTube channel. Links down below, as they would be. Additionally, as of a couple weeks ago now, FinalBossTV is on Spotify. Should still be working. I hooked that all up a little while ago. You just go to Spotify and just search FinalBossTV, all one word, capital F, capital B, capital TV, and that should pop up. Additionally, of course, has been on Google Play Music and Stitcher Radio and iTunes. So if you want to listen to the audio-only versions of the main show there, or of course the archived version of the live show itself with video and everything on YouTube. But with the holidays, of course, right around the corner, hopefully you aren't holiday shopping right now, but if you are, the show is sponsored and partnered with Corsair and Elgato. There is a discount code, and you can grab yourself some free standard shipping, of course, and up to 10% off on Corsair bits and pieces and Elgato gear. But if there's a better, gifted code or discount out there, use that one. But if you at least navigate to the websites to look at things, or if you're looking for any things for your upcoming build, I know I have a huge build on the horizon here that I will be putting together and live streaming the entire thing, so you can see all the stuff. I've got a new case, got the new keyboards. I'm using the keyboards and mouse headsets and stuff right now, but I'll be back to using them. This is the new Virtuoso here. Got it sitting right next to me, but I'll be using that with my new Go XLR. I've got my new coolant, fan, mouse pad, memory, power supply. I've actually got, I think this is the model I have. I'm not sure. I've got the liquid cooling going on there. But if you're looking for everything, I was a fan of Corsair before I partnered with them about a year ago now, and I have enjoyed the entire experience. And of course, it goes to support what I do here and keep going. If you get something for yourself, then it helps me out in the long run. And I've got a whole bunch of the Elgato bits and bobs as well. I gotta set up my stream deck and get that going. I'm actually gonna show you, I gotta install my new green screen, but I've got these fancy key lights. I gotta do all this stuff, and I'll stream all of that fiddling to get that all going here. Coming up this week, end of this week, should that be all streamed. But that is one way you can support the show, the stream, and everything in between what I do here on the internet. But there is still one more way. And if you've seen this before, I'm wearing my grandpa's, like, not my grandfather's, I bought this specifically, but the whole Florida man meme. This is like totally a shirt that I could see people just like fishing in out here. But if you're looking for apparel and other things of that nature, of course, there's a whole bunch that my patrons are actually getting soon. There's a new custom shirt that we made for them, and they're getting to pick multiple different ones from the past last season worth of shirts. But the Designed by Humans FinalBossTV store, there have been a lot of huge discounts due to Black Friday or due to the holiday sales as well. But I work with a lot of artists to create designs. These are the design page. If you're actually looking at, say you're looking at the Little Queen image or something like that, or you want to do one of the Battle Azeroth Days shirts, you click on the shirt and then you can customize it and put there's different fabric types. You get different colors. You of course got the different styles of shirts between t-shirts and tank tops and hoodies and v-necks, and there's the unisex cut, and there's like 2 or 3 different cuts for girls and ladies. You can go check those out. They are different size charts and all this madness. This is just the front page. They're not only t-shirts. Not only t-shirts. Everyone thinks like they're only in no, you click on them and then you go from there. But a couple of these designs are going to be retiring soon. But if you'd like some physical stuff, this is getting replaced with a different all-over shirt. This was sort of this joke one, but there's new art for that one. And we're probably going to retire the Fate of the Titan all-over shirt, because as this expansion moves beyond. But all the different designs by Fabelina, all the little final bosses, Those are her designs we put together, with the newest ones being the Anduin and Pupper Greymane, and then the Little Queen version of Ajara. We might do one with N'Zoth, little tentacly squid head boy. I'm not sure. Holidays are busy. She's busy, and I'll update you guys when I make something if it does, and you'll see it. But those are ways you can make the show keep going. Again, no show next week as I'm doing the holiday build, time off. Everyone is doing their own thing kind of deal. The last Sunday of this month will be the year-end special, which I'm trying to make not a WoW-focused show. So we'll see if I can make that a thing. And then we'll keep chugging along with the spec shows come the new year. We may not get through all of them depending on when the beta starts, just as like a note, an FYI. There's not that much time left because once the alpha and beta coverage begins, if you've been around this channel before, I do a huge amount of spec testing, and that'll take priority. And then I'll wiggle in some beta shows as well, try to get other people's opinions on what they've been testing and what's been going on there as well. So that's where we're at, because the huge mountain of doing every single specialization show, 36 of them. We may not get through all of them, but I'll definitely try. But obviously, Shadowlands information will take priority. So, question time. I've got some rapid fire stuff. Core, second half of the show, are you going to sing for us or still no?
Nope.
Dang it. Dang it. But let's see. If you have any questions about Fury Warriors or Arms Warriors, real or meme or otherwise, I have some rapid fire things on here. Again, my preface that was what Discord class community. Which Discord class community do you either of you think has the best memes? Core, what do you think? Which one?
Demon Hunter by far.
Yeah, Demon Hunter is.
Oh, both of you.
Yeah, like I already had it in my head. Demon Hunter instantly.
Demon Hunter.
It's ran by Kib, right? Who's just he lives in doing that stuff.
That's giving Kib too much credit, though. Damn.
Deserved. I don't know.
Also
Really?
have a shitpost channel that needs to get purged like every day because it's so spicy.
Where? On the Demon Hunter Discord.
Yeah.
Not in Skyhold, though.
No, that
It's,
would never be in Skyhold.
Yeah, that Discord channel is kind of a cesspool almost.
Dang. Well, that was a unanimous one. I don't know if chat has anything different to add, which one they think is the most memeiest one. But while a few questions percolate, what is your favorite War Swords of the Valajar artifact appearance from Legion?
Personally, I like the PvP one a lot. I think it's Storm Breath.
Storm's Breath, yeah, Storm Breath.
The only problem with that is that it doesn't go with like any set, unfortunately.
Is it because of the way it looks or the color palette you have? Or?
The one you have on stream right now, especially that black, red, and white one.
Yeah.
I really like it, but yeah, it just doesn't go with anything. There's no sets that really match.
Oh, damn. Definitely a cool looking sword. Core, what's your favorite?
It's gotta be the axes, which is like the Dragon Slayer's Edge, I think it's called.
Yeah, this is like the hidden appearance.
Yeah. It's kind of got that Gore-Hal-esque look.
A little bit.
Yeah, so I just axes are my favorite kind of weapon, and so that's just what I use mostly.
The pink one, kill 1,000 enemy players after unlocking it. This is like some cyberpunk color scheme going on right now.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It doesn't match anything, but actually, no, it wouldn't match the Warlord set too much from the first Elite season set, but it's definitely out there, and I hope it matches something soon. Because I really like the blade on it.
Definitely some really cool looking swords. All of the versions still sheath on your back, right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. No, they're pretty awesome. We haven't really seen, there's a couple of sword models or weapon models in BFA that are like, oh, dang. But the art team definitely outdid themselves in Legion. And it's good that it wasn't matter for you as much because you can transmog to any of them because you're just using two-handed weapons the whole time. but they loosened a bit of the transmog restrictions, so you can actually put these over everything. I know Feral Druid and Guardian Druid had a problem with that for a little while, and casters with wands had a problem, but they've fixed that, so you can still use them because they're super iconic to keep them in your transmog pocket. Otherwise, they would just go away. They would just gone. Very, very neat
This
weapons.
aspect has been pretty lackluster. There's some cool ones. So like one that comes up a lot is the Plundered Blade of the Northern Kings from. It's like the big black and white sword.
Yeah. It's a
then,
Valkyrie weapon. They used to go for like $500,000 gold beginning of the expansion.
Yeah, and that's like 5K at most, probably.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe. Yikes. Yep. Now, let me see here real quick. There was a couple of questions that came in and oh, yeah. I mean, I got to give Gorehal at least a shout out here. I have your armories pulled up, but neither of you put them on. Do either of you actually have the Tusks of Manaroth? Because Corjo's not wearing them.
If you go to my kills, I have probably about 400 or 500 on my warrior alone.
Just no, they haven't dropped for you then.
Just haven't dropped.
Gorehal, how many kills did you take to get the shoulders? Oh no, check. You have to vote. Is Vils female blood elf? Like fiery part of the problem with the fiery crown. Got those dual wield tesselachs. Or we got the big old Maghar orc boy. This is Corjo's warrior. You could decide which one looks more warrior-y. And there was something, I gotta scroll back.
I think I got them back in the Legion pre-patch when there was like not much to do. It took me like 70 kills. It wasn't too bad. Definitely like way under average.
Oh gosh, what? To get Tesselak?
I know, to get the shoulders.
Oh, to get the oh, you have them. Oh. Yeah. Wait, 70?
Yeah, I was pretty lucky. Yeah. I just logged out. If you want to refresh it, that's what I use when I have them on.
You see, there you go. There's the proof in the pudding. But what okay. Googles. Got the Googles on. Sure.
Yeah, I'm a Goggles fan.
And that huge, stupid challenge mode sword, it's actually like anime size. Complete nonsense. But what you just made a lot of warriors very angry. I hope you realized that by saying you got the shoulders in 70 kills. Because some of the people in chat that did hundreds. Yeah, Gorehal said 478.
There was a bug in Legion 2, or probably about Tumas Hagaris era, where you could just farm your own instance over and over again, like have it all with lockout, invite him to its own group and all that thing.
Yeah.
But not a thing you could do is that you could leave the group before you killed Garrosh. You could loot him and bonus roll every attempt. So you take out 2 attempts. You can do it over and over and over. It's a very weird bug. One of my friends got tusks in about 3 days when he did that.
Yeah. So this goes back to what we were talking about earlier about how the game is currently balanced, but Northern Man wants to know, it kind of ties in 2 different topics. Ties in some single-minded fury versus Titan's grip, and ties in the whole white damage right-clicking the boss. How much actual auto attack white damage is contributing to your overall total DPS as fury, and would even using 2 one-handers, in theory, he says, equal that amount? Or would it be just way different? Because you'd attack faster with 2 one-handers with the amount of haste killing you have. But would that not be as much as the slower hasten just being 2-handers? I think I got poke
hard question.
Yeah, I've never really tried using a one-hander so far.
Well, you can't use one-handers right now because you can't guess ability. But
yeah,
it'll probably be fairly even. Fairly is the key word here, because like it depends how fast your all attacks can get. If they get stupid fast, you could probably get relatively even damage, like casting double the amount for like half the damage. That's a hard question to answer because especially how since like weapon damage is a thing too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just if you could equip 2 one-handers in theory, it's probably about even. It probably just due to RNG how many auto attacks you miss, because the Fury just all misses auto attacks because it's dueling, right? But it's probably fairly even, give or take.
Well, let me. Looking at Lady Ashvane parses. Looking at the top 10 here at least. Who should I click on to see how much white damage they're getting? I want to actually see what your auto attack amount is.
Go to Falu. Falu's a good player.
Yeah. I don't, not Khalid. No. Oh.
Not Khalid.
No.
So let me look here. This is Lady Ashvane kill. Just about 4 minutes. This is recent. Let me. Where's the note? Yeah, November 13th. So about a month ago. Big parse actually. This is like third or fourth. But let me see. Just because now I'm curious. Is again keep Rampage 24.3% of his damage. Melee 10%. 10.13% overall damage, beating out Bloodthirst and everything else. So quite a bit.
Yeah, it's fair. It's quite a bit for Fury because it auto attacks so much, but it still does miss auto attacks here and there. So like a fair amount. If they did all hit, melee would be way higher.
Yeah,
I think that's around
20%
what it
miss.
was in Legion. 10%.
Yeah, Fury auto attack quite often back in Legion. The damage was pretty high for Fury auto attack damage.
It's kind of bonkers to see like execute and cut of death are actually not that far apart. This is a weapon.
Yeah.
That's so ridiculous how much damage that is. It's just above the Guardian of Azeroth alone.
It'll be anywhere from like 2 to 8% of your damage usually.
Yeah, with the high level one, like a 450, probably like the 8 to 10% range if you get.
Right.
It's gone down a little this tier in terms of auto attack damage just because you have random stuff doing like a ton of damage, like CLF, Pink Pod, Benthic. Yeah, that's just another problem with strength too. Like strength doesn't help any of that.
Let me see. I'm trying to read through chat here. Just double check. I've been able to transmog different appearances together. That would be cool. Because when I was looking at the artifact weapons, you have to do the same. Like you have to dual wield the swords. But what if you could put, one version of your artifact in one hand and the other in the other hand, so you could dual wield 2 of them. So some people like that.
Kind of cool.
That desynced look. Yeah.
Yeah, I know you can transmog one regular weapon and one artifact weapon.
Yeah.
You can't have 2 of the same artifact because it'll just switch both.
Yeah. How about, do either of you have any Fury or Arms Warrior macros, or I guess add-ons, that you'd suggest to other warriors who are trying to step up their gameplay to also utilize or look into? Anything that like pops immediately, like, use this or get this, or I suggest blah.
The only macro I'd say is like absolutely necessary if you want to grief less is into your charge you can macro a cancel blade storm. It's really good for arms too, especially because your blade storm is like 6 seconds, 5 seconds. So if you need to cancel it, you just hit your charge button and you can do something else like kick or stun.
Yeah, canceling your blade storm happens quite often in Mythic Plus. For Fury, it's not a big deal because your blade storm is only like literally 1 to 2 seconds long. But for like arms, canceling the blade storm is a fairly nice tool to have. The damage from blade storm isn't that high, so you're not missing out too much, especially if you need to kick in an emergency. But that's like the only macro you really need. A really nice one too is execute hover macro. Is that it executes wherever your mouse is hovering over. So that's really nice. You don't have to switch off to an add, execute, and then switch back into the boss. It's just you just hover over with your keybind for execution.
Okay, that's a pretty good one. No add-ons that you use in particular. I'm sure there's weak aura suites and things of that nature, but was there anything else that really came up?
If your weak aura suite doesn't have a swing timer, it doesn't matter for Fury because Fury swings so much, but for arms, you definitely want to swing timers.
Still do,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah, because you can still auto attack, and then you don't have enough rage. You can still run out and charge. So that's still very much a thing, and it's pretty.
Oh, wow.
It's a pretty important thing to do, honestly. You don't need to do as much as an execute because you do have enough rage there, but like you should be charging almost fairly on cooldown when you can as arms. Even those charges like a 2 to 3%.
It can just help you plan your rotation too. Like you need some Mortal Strike on cooldown, but
Yeah.
Whirlwind's your filler. So if you have like 35 rage, can you Whirlwind here, and then you're gonna swing. You can Mortal Strike when it's up, and not miss one, and just stuff
Yeah,
like that.
You know when you're getting rage, so you know when you can spend a lot more, or know when you need the reserve.
Mm-hmm.
And then other than that, just weak auras to track your rage and other cooldown stuff like that.
Okay. I didn't know. I thought that was that Warlords into Legion or Legion into BFA where the discussion came up about arms charging in combat between swings was looked at kind of degenerately, like not part of the rotation, or Blizzard, it wasn't like a planned thing because they had made
Going into war, that game of thing, because they added Juggernaut, back an old Juggernaut where you could charge every 12 seconds instead of every 20.
Sure.
And then there was double time where you could charge every like 2 times in 20 seconds. It was a charge system. But that double time is that you could only get charge only from out of combat, I think it was something like that. They made it so you couldn't just abuse charge over and over and over again.
Okay.
But actually, if arms actually was able to do that, the spec actually would have been more fun to.
Unfortunately, I think that's why charge still has the dead zone, and you have to be like 8 yards away to charge. So
Yeah.
it's not like Demon Hunter where you can just fell rush anytime, but it gives you like no resource. It just does little damage. So they're fine with like not having a restriction on.
Okay.
On really big bosses, really big hitboxes, it's awful.
Charge is super finicky.
Yeah, especially on Stormwall, you couldn't charge away from that boss. Basically, you charge the ads, but that's all you could do.
So I have to go. I'm going back in time real quick here because a question came up about what are your thoughts and opinions from Tetra on new versus old recklessness? And I actually had to Google and try to find, I'm still digging through this one real quick here to find what the, so old recklessness, I had to go back to a Mist of Pandaria talent calculator. Tetra asked like MOP era. Recklessness was an instant cast, 3-minute cooldown. Grants your special attacks an additional 30% chance to critically hit. Lasted 12 seconds. Says the old rec. 3-minute cooldown, 12-second duration, only 30% more crit on your special attacks only. Compared to today, where we know that recklessness is, go over to class real quick down here. So you go Berserk, increasing all rage generation by 100%, granting your abilities a 20% increased critical strike chance for 10 seconds on a 90-second cooldown, 1.5 minutes.
Yeah, this current version of Recklessness is just better than MOP era. However, Warlords era Recklessness was a tad different. It increased your critical strike and your critical strike damage by like 20%. That I think was actually the best iteration of Recklessness. Still a 3-minute cooldown, but the crit damage is just a really nice flavor thing to have at sometimes too. Because when you pop in and execute, your harder hits just hit harder and it makes crit more valuable. And that's like a weird thing because like back in Legion 2, you had Battle Cry, which made crit absolutely worthless because it was up all the time. But like that critical strike damage increases critical strike value a bit higher because those crits just mean more. It's definitely you want to like cap out at like some weird percent, like 70%, so you don't over cap on that critical strike damage. But the critical strike damage, it feels really nice.
Yeah, did you even stack crit back then? I don't remember.
In MOP, you definitely stacked crit. Crit was your best stat by far. You got like 50% if you could, right? And then in Warlords, it was like crit and versatility. Crit had a lot of interactions with Fury in general. It triggered Enrage back in the day. Now it doesn't. Crit was just an important part because it made your DPS rotation faster and your harder hitting abilities just hit harder. and of course it had synergy with recklessness. And then Legion turned it upside his head where it made crit absolutely worthless.
Yeah, Bloodthirst spec then 90% weapon damage plus some main hand damage, restores a little of your health. Bloodthirst has a double the normal chance to be a critically strike. What does Bloodthirst read now? It just deals damage based on some weird, crazy attack power, high level and weapon damage formula, and then just does damage and heals you. Generates 8 rage.
Yeah, and then if it's like a 30% chance to trigger enrage, it's on a different passive.
Oh,
it's on the enrage passive.
Oh, gross! One of those. Yeah.
And then Rampage always enraged you too, so that's the reason why they took that away, because the Rampage is the always guaranteed version.
Basically, that's right. They gave Bloodthirst the Chaos Strike treatment, where they had a flat amount, because when it had a crit synergy, it basically made crit your only stat you cared about. Same thing with Havoc last expansion with Chaos Strike. But now Chaos Strike just has like that 40% chance to refund or something, so it basically just has 40 crit in it, and Enrage has 30% crit in it. And Rampage always enrages you. Yeah, okay. Interesting. Going way back, I had to dig this website up.
Yeah, it's hard to find older versions of spells now, because like even sometimes you pull up the website and half the links.
Yeah, these are pretty okay so far. Hovering over certain ones. Your old mastery just increases your damage when you were enraged, but had nothing else. Because you didn't have the haste synergy you have with the baseline stuff now, so
yeah.
That's the enrage passive.
Better.
Yeah. So I have one here. If you weren't playing a DPS warrior, Vil, what would you DPS as?
Just in general, or like going to the next tier, you think?
Yeah, it's like if you tomorrow if you logged in and you couldn't play your warrior, what would you DPS as? What's your
probably as a demon hunter or a DK.
Whoa.
If I had to pick between some other melee, I'd try to stay away from range.
Ah, okay. What spec of DK would call you though? Would it be Frost or Unholy?
Usually just whatever's better. I think people are saying Frost for next year, maybe Unholy in some fight.
Yeah, Frost. It's actually kind of funny. Frost and Unholy sort of have a similar back and forth that Arms and Fury do. I mean, there's definitely some interesting. So you got a dual class and a two-hand class, and a dual-hand class or two-hand class. Unholy has a lot of garbage with their pet right now. We talked about that on their show, where like too much or too little damage and interactions with their pet, but you guys don't have to worry about that. But Corey, what would you play if you weren't playing warrior anymore? What would you DPS as?
Probably the same as Vil, probably a DK or DH, or maybe even a shaman. Maybe a shaman, because I played a bit of Enhanced this expansion. This wasn't that bad.
Right.
But even then, I probably don't know the glory days of Enhanced Shaman. I don't know Soul Cap and stuff like that.
Oh.
Yeah, those Fire
Soul
Nova
Cap,
and
Fire
all
Nova.
that garbage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably one of those three. I would stick to melee. I don't like ranged. Every single time I play a ranged character, sometimes I start right click the melee. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm stupid, right? You don't need to do that. It's just something I just will never ever play.
What you said about the pet thing too.
Yeah.
I play Unholy a little bit in our all raid right now, and now that you mentioned the pet thing, I definitely would like to play Frost more, because that pet definitely does some weird stuff. I like summoned it on Behemoth while we were crossing to the other platform, and it just sank to the bottom, and then I had to wait to resummon it.
That's like all pets in general. I think they got a little bit deeper in the fact that there's weird travel time on Dark Transformation, and there's some very finicky min-maxing with trying to get your energy and certain abilities to line up when you Dark Transform that actually can impact its damage, of course, and your damage because of the wound system. There's like extra little layers that at some point you're like, that's kind of interesting. But then when you get like down to figuring out and actually playing it and be smooth, they said it's actually gets very kind of not great.
Yeah,
so,
it's very tedious, and
yeah,
you don't have the pet AI the pay AI just doesn't work half the time, right? Especially
Yeah.
ENR, right? I just remember everyone just bitching and complaining that dismiss your pet and resummon it because it just didn't follow them or just sunk into the ground for no particular reason.
Yeah. Just a quick one-off here is I had a question to walk me through your opener as a Fury Warrior, but I think to precede that, because again, stuff from 8.2, 8.25 isn't totally updated and it's things sort of osmose before 8.3. Vil, what's like your build? What's the build you run on Fury right now for most of the time? What's the talent setup? Just slap that down for me real quick.
Right now it's Endless Rage, Double Time, Sudden Death, or Furious Slash. Furious Slash is like the pure single target, but you'd play on Savara or maybe like Ashrain or the other first few bosses. On something like Ashara, you would play Sudden Death just because more cleave.
Mm-hmm.
And then generally you take more paint, just more DR, and Carnage, Dragon Roar, and Siegebreaker.
So okay. And you hit the two things that I wanted to bring up, and part of the whole opener discussion here is that you have Dragon's Roar, 35-second cooldown. You have Siegebreaker, 30-second cooldown. You have sort of like the building up to the Rampage window and playing around, not necessarily playing around the Bloodthirst window as well, but then you have Recklessness, which is a 90-second cooldown. So they do line up eventually, but like, why is Dragon War a 35-second cooldown? Does that actually play into the rotation? You have a lot of small rotational mini cooldowns, I would say. And does that work? Is it working out fine? It's not clunky, as the internet would say.
The like extra cooldown on Dragon Roar isn't usually too bad. Like the extra 5 seconds. In dungeons, you tend to line them up, and on single target, you kind of just follow the priority. And when Dragon Roar comes up, even if it's like out of Siegebreaker, it's fine. But yeah, on AOE, you try to pair them up for sure.
Okay. And then Corejo, with this in mind, what's sort of like what's your opener look like? When you charge that boss, what's your order of operations?
Yeah. So if you're just running CLF, you just pop CLF right before the pull, right? And then you would charge your Recklessness the exact same time because double rage generation, more rage, earlier rampage. Then you Siegebreaker, and then you want to build to the first rampage as fast as you can, which might be right after the Siegebreaker, or you might have to hit Bloodthirst because your auto attacks can miss. It's a bit of variance here and there, right? If you miss your auto attack, you have to hit Bloodthirst. If you don't hit Rampage, and then you just kind of follow the priority. You hit your Bloodthirst, hit your Dragon Roar, and you just go on the priority, just go up and down over and over again. Dragon Roar isn't that of important ability to hit in cooldowns on single target, like Vil just said. It's just you kind of hit it whenever you just hit it, right? Your goal is just to hit as few whirlwinds as you can, or your filler, or for your slash, if you're talented, because your filler is just you not hitting hard abilities that generate more range. So you just want to follow that priority and just keep hitting as many rampages as you can, while trying to keep as much in range uptime as you can. Sometimes you might hold rampage for a couple seconds because, say, you just got in range from Bloodthirst, right? So you don't need to cast rampage immediately. You can hit maybe a Bloodthirst and a Raging Blow and then hit rampage.
Okay. And how about, again, Vil, since you have the last expansion, this expansion sort of the most fresh for you in your older experience, and you can see sort of what you had as baseline talents, and sort of coupling off what Northern Man said in chat is, could you name some talents that are already shared between Arms and Fury that should just be baseline? And I'm going to stare right here at this middle one in the 45 row called Sudden Death. Just gonna look at this one. But do you have any ideas on what should just be shared across the board between the two specs?
Between the two specs, yeah, I think Sudden Death is iconic enough that it could be baseline for both specs. It's not like insane for Arms, but for Fury, it's pretty nice. It's just something people have had over the years that they like a lot. Bladestorm could probably be baseline for both specs too. It already is for Arms, and for Fury, it's a solid choice. Like, you can take a Mythic Plus. I saw someone in the chat said that. And you can play it on some fights in Raid too, even. Other than that, I don't really see any damage talents that should be baseline. Definitely should have Shockwave baseline again. I know everyone wants that back, so we
Yeah.
get some utility and probably double time too. It's just something similar to what Demon Hunters have, you know, AoE stun baseline and 2 charges baseline. Like they have a lot, obviously, but I don't think that's asking for too much.
If they're not gonna, because Blizzard obviously doesn't want all like the crazy AOE stud meta to come back. If anything else, kind of this button hooks to what Cora said earlier, that like Stormbolt should be your baseline stun then in this regard. At least have you something, because right now you have the charge micro stun root thing, and that's it. That's
just a root.
Else.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all you got. It
So,
feels really bad choosing between double time and Stormbolt, especially Mythic Plus, right? Because then you're like, oh man, I'm walking into this fight, right? It feels awful.
Yeah. So we've come to it then. Some soapbox time, some closing shout outs, remarks, anything else you want to leave the community with, any wondrous bits of wisdom or anything you would like to sort of rant about to get off your chest and the warrior side of things. Vil, I'm going to go to you on this one first. Do you have anything you want to go for it?
I think ARMS just needs some love, something. If anyone out there is listening, it's just so painful to play right now in some fights where you can just die. I think it's like a fine spec design-wise, but it's just so squishy. And if you're thinking that you're close to dying on a fight, just play Fury. Don't play ARMS and Greed.
Oh, no. What else you got? Anything else? Is that like your pinpoint?
I think that's my pinpoint. That's like my biggest problem with Warrior now is Fury is just this tanky god and ARMS is just on the floor.
Now, you know, I'm going to go first-person camera on this one and look at the... I'm not going to look in the camera you guys see, but this one over here, so I'm looking a little bit... Whatever, cross-eye. You know, if you say that and you want ARMS to be tankier, but Fury is so tanky and all this self-healing and all these cooldowns, you know what they're going to do, right? In Blizzard fashion, they're just going to nerf Fury.
They'll probably nerf Fury, yeah, or just make Fury the squishy one, like at the start of Legion, I think, where you just took a lot more damage than Rage.
Well,
yeah, that was.
Do you want
kinda...
that back? Come on.
No.
I don't want the start, like the beginning version back, but I think in Antaurus it was okay.
In Taurus, it was fine because he also had 15 million HP. You could
like
tank 2 sites on Argus.
10 million health as Fury. That's like what tanks had.
To give a quick shout out during the entail here, right when I switched cameras, just Mia wants the somewhat. I'm not gonna give him any recognition. Thank you for the gifted subs, you madman. What did you just say? I was hoping something was important in chat, and I just spam it off the screen. Oh, well, now it's all just emotes. It's all emotes for the Twitch holiday stuff. But Corejo, all right, your end show soapbox. What do you have?
Just like Vil said, ARMS needs some love defensively, man. It's kind of sad to see how it's just been the way it is since Legion. Legion, it was kind of squishy, but had a few ways to survive, which is fine. But right now, it's just like it's so apparent that you're going to die and going to rot on so many fights of progression. Even on a farm in Orgozoa, it's like, okay, I got hit by the dribbling, the debuff, and I have to spread out. Will I die after I get hit, right? Because what if I get jolted by an ad, right? I'm just going to die. There's nothing I can do about it. Its defenses are weak. Defensive stance is just not good enough. It needs something. A self-healing trait, once again, like it had back in Legion, or just a whole relook of how defensively ARMS should work.
Mm-hmm.
And also remove deep wounds. I hate it.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, well, you don't like having 20+% of your damage passive? Are you sure?
It's the problem with that is that it's like on AoE, it's very like impactful. You can play around it, you will do more damage. But on single target, you're just like, yeah, I hit my billion cooldown. They had a really nice alpha mastery beta mind back in for BFA. It was opportunity strikes. When the target got less HP, you did more frequent attacks.
Mm-hmm.
That was really cool, but it's kind of hard to balance at the same time. But I kind of just don't like deep wounds as a mastery. It's kind of failed as a mastery. as they show in the beginning expansion, where they buffed the scaling by 1,000%, and then again by 14%, and it's still not your best stat. It's a clear indication that deep wounds as a mastery shouldn't be a thing. I wouldn't mind it as like a small passive, but
Was
as a
it
mastery, it's
really?
definitely failed.
Was it really 1,000%?
They buffed this game by 1,000%.
I need to go to the. Hold on. I don't.
From 8% base to 80%.
Dang.
And then there's also some other scaling shit that they did under the hood. But yeah, it was about 1,000%.
Yeah, Deep
1,000.
Wounds has definitely just failed this expansion.
When you simmed your stat weights, Deep Wounds was literally pointless. It was by far the worst secondary stat in the game for a particular spec.
I mean, right now it's. At least if I think this is correct, it's like just shy 54% of your attack power.
Yeah, and then its own mastery scaling, where it's just direct increased damage.
Yeah, deep wounds damage increased by 8%, and then it's like 54% of your attack power is the bleed.
Yeah.
Yeah, this goes back. This is something we just, as a final little tale here, is it's weird that our main stat, and it always starts out worth it, but once you hit a certain amount of main stat, your agility, your strength, your int, secondaries, the multiplicative modifiers, always just overcome it. Which is weird when you look at like how much your attack power in this regard, or whatever, your strength in this case, contributes to how much of your damage. So if deep wounds is supposed to be something that's really, really beneficial, why is it barely 50% of your strength value? So it's little things like that I wonder how little. But other abilities, like say Colossus Smash, a big button to hit, is 150% of your attack power. Actually, no, I think it's 200%, depending on the notes here. So it's a ton, right? So certain things matter and others just don't. But, oh well, we'll see. We'll see what Halo can do.
With Deep Wounds being so much your damage too, your overall abilities just don't feel as powerful as arms. And that's kind of like the big thing arms used to be about, was big hit.
Yeah.
And then you bleed the target out, right? Now it's just, you're kind of just hitting stuff to keep Deep Wounds rolling, because that's just what you're supposed to do. Your abilities don't hit that hard unless you stack everything with a Warbreaker, and then you hit on AoE and pull threat immediately. But
sounds a bit like a PvP change, because those big hits would just kill people or pressure heal too hard, and they had to make an adjustment to make it sort of smoother. But that's
Deep Wounds is also very strong in PvP too, because it's undispellable bleed that's pretty much up 100% of the time, and it deals a lot of. It's actually I think a lot of people are actually calling the nerf in PvP because it's so strong. And you combo with a rend to undispellable dots for a lot, high duration. It's kind of hard to
that ignore armor,
not heal through it. Yeah, they ignore armor, right? It's hard to bring it to stabilize after that.
Well, we'll see. But I think that's about it. That's about it. I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna slam this button, because I think that's enough fury with a sprinkling of arms. So thank you very much for tuning in today. This is 206. Next show, 207, will be the year-end special, and then we'll see where 2020 takes us. And the PC build stream coming up soon, of course. That's where I will be. So hopefully you have a safe and happy holidays. But around the table again, Vil coming in here, Padlord Extreme apparently, or just a parse monkey. I don't know, whatever nomenclature that your guild wants to go in here. All the copy pastas. They died down pretty soon after the show started. We can get some of those in chat again. That'd be pretty good. But Vil is in the Discord at Vil. Thank you for your time today, sir. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. It was a pretty good time.
It was Corejo. He's on the Twitch at Corejo Wow. Now, is that WoW because it's World of Warcraft, or WoW because you're a 12-year-old trapped in a 21-year-old's body?
Bit of both.
Bit of both. Maybe you should you know how you get more viewers for your Twitch stream right now? I'm going to give this to you.
Yeah.
See all that white wall to your left?
Yeah.
You need to get some more Christmas lights.
Get
a big old, really annoying wreath with Christmas lights and blinking and some like reindeer face. Fill that in. Then it'll work.
I haven't streamed recently though, too, right?
Sure.
Probably stream tonight if people want to watch.
Nice.
But yeah, I took a 2-month, almost 3-month break in the middle of this tier because I was so burnt out. Couldn't play the game.
Jump in, and you got any essences to farm?
Yeah, I have essence farmed already. Thank God. That's
Did
part
you?
of the reason why I quit. I just like, yeah, that's part of the reason why I quit because I had everything.
I wanted to Vil, did you see like the visible sigh when I said you got any essences to farm?
Yeah, Corey wasn't having a good time at the start of this patch, unfortunately. I can't really blame him though.
It's a great system, but damn, it's a little much. But that is that. So stay tuned for this. Of course, if you missed the episode, check it out on the YouTubes. Of course, big shout out to those that are keeping the show going. Holiday time's around the corner. One last little closing glimpse. Links below. Corsair and Elgato for yourself, for gifts, whatever you're looking for. They have some crazy. They had some nuts deals for Black Friday. But that's in Cyber Monday. Actually, that was even better. But those are down below, either on YouTube or right here on Twitch. But again, no show next Sunday. Show the Sunday after, then we'll go from there. So thank you for tuning in today. Have a great rest of your weekend. Be safe. Have a great happy holidays. I'll be streaming the huge PC build right here if you want to tune in when I'm doing all that. Tell me what I'm doing wrong, or just watch everything and all the moving and all the madness that I've been doing here. But stay tuned for the corrupted gear. Some more raid testing on the horizon. Get your essences farmed. But until the week after next, everybody. Bye. Core. Wave by it. The nice people. Wave. There it is. That's a really strong wave. Look at this. Oh, what was...